Welcome back to What's New in the Lou with Alexis Zotos, presented by Kaldi's Coffee. This is your can't miss weekly podcast helping you stay in the know in St. Louis. And this is officially episode 50. So thank you for being with us each week as we continue to share the best of our region. So the best new restaurants, the can't miss events that you want to put on your calendar, and most importantly, the people that make the St. Louis area the best place to live and visit. Stick around for the end of the episode because we are going to give you a calendar of things to do this week in the Lou so you do not feel left out when you start seeing all that stuff on social media and you're like, why didn't I know about that? Well, you listen to this podcast and then you know. This week, I am thrilled. I had to really think about who I was going to have for my 50th episode, and we wanted somebody who was pretty exciting, and that is Dave Sandusky of Beast Craft BBQ. Thank you for being episode 50.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me here.
A lot of pressure, so I hope it's a good episode.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're talking about new stuff. You guys have a new spot.
Yeah. We just opened in the Foundry, the City Foundry STL. They very, very specifically want me to say the whole thing, City Foundry STL.
What has that been like? Why did you think this is the right spot for our next location?
Well, it's right around the corner from the location we had in the Grove. Mm-hmm. We have a huge fan base in the city, and so it just felt like the right situation. We have a great relationship with ownership there and with Niche, who's involved in some capacity, and so it felt easy. It felt like the obvious next step, mm-hmm. and we're proud to be back in the city again where we belong. So
yeah, talk to us about the concept there. This is for people who might not be aware. This is where Expat Barbecue was, that they've closed, and you guys are taking that space. Are you taking that full rooftop area too, and downstairs, all of it?
No, Niche is still going to be running a sports bar.
Oh, okay, cool.
In that space.
Nice.
But we've taken over the kitchen.
Got it.
And all of the vendors there will be open to selling food in that sports bar. But yeah, we've taken over the kitchen space. We cut holes in the wall so where we have access to the food hall.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a pretty cool setup. We're pretty proud of it.
What can people expect when they're there? What are they going to get?
So you can expect the favorites, of course, right? Mm-hmm. Like the pork steak, the Brussels sprouts, those things that made us famous. Brisket's always high on the list. We're proud to bring Snoot to the city.
Okay.
That's a big one. But it's also kind of a beta testing ground for some different things.
Like what? Like what you guys experimenting with?
I was just playing around with some ideas. And one of the things we put on the menu was a peanut butter and jelly brisket sandwich.
Okay.
Which sounds ridiculous, right? But
I don't know. My kid sounds like he might be really into it. He lives off of peanut butter and jelly.
Me too. Listen, there's peanut butter is probably my favorite food on the planet. Okay. All things considered.
You got to get your protein somewhere, right?
Yeah. And high amounts of fat and allergens. But, you have that salty, bitter bark from the brisket, and you give it this broader baseline with the peanut butter. And then you add sweetness to that. It's that salty and sweet connection, right?
Yeah.
And it plays to your childhood and to those traditional flavors that, you grew up with. But we're just sliding some brisket in there too, And so it's substantial and it's rich, and it's really fun to take a big old bite out of, and just brings back some memories, but then pushes it a little bit, and it's fun, and who cares? And it's working. People are buying it. So it's just something to do, and we'll have some new things that come down the pike as well.
Is there a different model that you guys had to kind of think about when you're thinking about a food hall where there's obviously a ton of other competition? You have multiple locations. You guys have Belleville, obviously your spot. You are in the Grove. You've got a spot you said on WashU's campus. You guys are in the City Stadium. How does this differ from a business operational standpoint?
Well, I think there are some logistical advantages for us by being in the Foundry, being positioned there for some processes that we have internally. Usually, there's some commissary work that happens from Belleville to push these items to these other locations and things. But we actually have the ability to smoke on site at the Foundry, so that's a little bit different than what we've had in these other satellites. And so it allows us a little more room to do some things. And so we're excited about that in this location.
Let's back it up a little bit and start at the beginning of Beast Craft BBQ. You guys opened in Belleville in
2014.
2014. Okay.
The week of Christmas.
Merry Christmas. What was that like, opening up that space? What was the immediate, sort of reaction from the community?
What? Yeah. So how much time do you have?
We got lots of time. Till Julia turns off our microphones.
Listen, I'm the typical like mangy pirate of a chef and restaurateur, right? Like I was built for this. It's in my blood. Like there's nothing else that I would do if I was, it's just what I was built for. And so I finally got the opportunity to own my own restaurant. Beast was our first, and opening day was the worst day of my life. Clearly, it was horrible. It was,
why?
Oh, it was an hour ticket times, and we couldn't figure out how everything should flow, and it was a mess. But it was also the start of something really big. And the whole approach as a chef was, I just want to take care of the plate and the customer, and if I can do those things, then everything else will fall into place. And that worked. We caught people's attention, and Cheryl Bayer, of all people, was the first one to take notice. And she came through and wrote an article. I think she named it King of Beasts is the best barbecue in St. Louis, actually in Belleville. And this was about 6 months after we opened. Okay.
Wow.
Now, this was at a time when Sugar Fire was on fire. These are all my friends, so I'm not, whatever. Salt and Smoke was on fire. Barbecue in general was at a peak. Pappy's, Bogart's, Daly's. Daly's was brand new too at the time. There's so many big brands here that are doing amazing things, amazing barbecue. And for her to step out and say something like that, well, we're not even in the city.
Right.
Really pissed off a lot of people. And so what it did was, at the time, it was the Riverfront Times' most clicked on story ever.
Wow.
That's how much it pissed people off. And so we had lines.
Everybody loves a good rage bait click.
Yeah, we had.
Whether it's rage bait or real,
We had lines around the building just to prove her wrong. And so it gave us a lot of opportunity, and we took advantage of it. And, we did our best, we did our thing, and it worked. And we changed a lot of misconceptions, and those people gave us a chance, and we killed it. And, the rest is history.
What do you think makes your barbecue special, that does set you apart from what others are doing, as great as the others are?
So, I think we have to speak about uniqueness, and I don't know that what we're doing is any better than what everybody else is doing. I think my friends in the business, we're all a really tight fraternity, and I think that everybody's doing their thing really, really well. The ones that have survived the pandemic, especially, and what I would say what makes us unique is that we're very focused on what makes St. Louis barbecue great, not just how it's done in Kansas City, how it's done in Georgia or Tennessee, how it's done in Texas. We wanted to pay homage to the pedigree of barbecue in this city. And I think that is what sets us apart a little bit. So, my take on that includes some points like, I don't think that this is necessarily a smoking city. I think this is much more of a grilling city. And I think that's why when your neighbor says, hey, let's have a barbecue next weekend, he's talking about, burgers and hot dogs and probably some pork steaks from Chinook's, right? Something like that. He's not talking about smoking a brisket, doing some sausages and pork butts and ribs, right? So, just thinking of that approach, knowing that Malls of all brands is the oldest retail barbecue sauce in America, that this this area consumes more barbecue sauce per capita than anywhere else in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
I know we're a sauce kind of city.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's some specific components that I wanted to include. I made my own basting sauce, but I made it inspired by, those types of sauces. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really focused on grilling and basting more than just smoking. Mm-hmm. I like to pair smokes. I don't think there's a one-all smoke answer for everything. To rabbit trail on that for a second, I think it's really important to recognize that in any style of cooking, if you have two dominant flavor profiles in the same dish, they're going to compete for attention. And so it's important to align things that support each other in a dish. And so, for instance, if you're going to put something really, really strong, like a mesquite or even a hickory or a pecan on a brisket, well, you're going to challenge that dominance of the beef profile a little bit. And everybody knows that beef is a dominant flavor because when you put, that ramen packet in your noodles, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm a fat kid, so I eat a lot of fat kid shit. I've had a ramen packet,
but yeah.
So you put, a beef packet in there. There's nothing else you're doing with it. Like it's beef, right? Right? The chicken packet's a little more neutral. You can do whatever you want with it. But beef is like dominant, right? So if you put a dominant smoke with it, it doesn't necessarily pair really well. There's just a lack of cohesion in the flavor profile. Usually you'll see oak with a brisket for a reason. It's very robust in its own way. I use a white oak because it grows like weeds around here, but it also leaves the brisket with like a buttery finish at the end. Yeah. It's really beautiful. So that makes sense. But the oak allows the beef to be forward. I see a lot of pitmasters that want to finesse, or chefs that want to finesse neutral meats with fruit woods and things like that. And I take a totally opposite approach to this stuff. If it's neutral, it needs the flavor. Let's give it to it. That's when the hickory, the mesquite, the pecan, and all of those more higher powered acrid woods are useful. Sweeter fruit woods lend more towards fatty cuts. Yeah. So pork bellies, spare ribs, bacon, things like that. That's where the fruit woods really, really shine, in my opinion. But I'm not putting a cherry on a brisket. I'm not putting cherry on a whole chicken. I'm putting, oak on a brisket. I'm putting hickory or something on a turkey breast or even a pork butt or something like that. So there's a lot of pairings on the front end in the cooking process. Then there's pairings on the back end with some beers and things. And I think that's just kind of like a cool way of bringing it all together. So, there's some nuances to how we do the things in our company. But everybody that is in the business today that has survived the onslaught of the pandemic and things, they're all doing things at a high level. Yeah. And we love those guys.
USA Today readers have named Kaldi's Coffee the best coffee chain for the second year in a row. Since 1994, Kaldi's Coffee has built its reputation on thoughtful sourcing, careful roasting, and warm, consistent service that shows up in every cup. It's an honor earned through daily dedication to quality. Explore Kaldi's best blends and find your cafe at kaldiscoffee.com. Well, I think, as people hear you talk about barbecue, and I do think when people think barbecue, they think a simple backyard thing we can all do. But at the end of the day, that's not what's setting apart the work that you're doing or the other really great barbecue spots in our city. Do you think that St. Louis is one of those places that helps people understand that barbecue is just as complex as sometimes what a fine dining chef is doing?
Well, I think that chefs in general, and being one myself, I think I can say this. Don't kill me in the comments, but chefs like to overcomplicate things just to overcomplicate them. They want to use ingredients that are complicated just to say that they used them, or just for a click and a picture, just to I just don't care. And I fell out of this a long time ago. I grew up in fine dining, and I got to this point where I just didn't care how many different ways we could cook foie gras, and I don't think anybody else cares. Real people do not care, like there's a time and a place, sure. But like, I just wanted to meet people at their dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to meet people where they were in their backyards and things like that. And so, details are important. And I think that is one of the strengths that I bring to this is I'm very detail oriented when it comes to this stuff. All the details matter, but I just don't know that we have to go out of our way to make things really hard to justify what we're doing or the price point. I think that we can do things very efficient and do them really well and create a great product with simple ingredients and not overcomplicating things. And I think that's where Beast shines.
Mm. You talk about meeting people at their kitchen table. When you think about 12 years at this company, just how many kitchen tables, picnic tables, backyards that your food has been served at, what goes through your mind when you think about that?
Man, I think about how just gratitude in general, because, we've been through a lot and we've accomplished a lot. And it's been because people have attached to what we're doing, why we're doing it. And so I just have a lot of gratitude for the regulars and for the folks that have stood by us even when we've made mistakes and when we have tried things that don't work and, things like that. It's been, there's a lot of hard work and grit from my staff that has gotten us where we are 12 years in, to be this far along, to be where we're at, national recognition, TV, all these things. There are individuals that, carried this company on their shoulders. And I have a lot of gratitude. My people are the best.
People look at your story and might just say that's a success story, but you guys have had just as many hardships as so many other businesses in hospitality over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that we're successful, but I wouldn't say that we're successful. But I'm also the type of person that's never satisfied. I'm always looking for the next way to do it better and always challenging myself about what's next. And so, sure, there's a lot of markers that would prove to anyone that we're a successful business model and that our style is successful and things like that. But I'm not done, and we're not done. And I think that I think we have an edge to us, and I think it's part of our personality and it's part of our brand's personality, and it just makes us unique.
Yeah, you mentioned you're not done, and you've just opened this new spot at the City Foundry STL. What is the full name that we're supposed to say?
City Foundry STL.
City Foundry STL, which I love. I love the Foundry. That is one of those projects that I've been a huge supporter of since the very beginning. I remember walking through that food hall when it was, just a shell, and then the pandemic hit and shifted that entire concept. And I love to see it, this many years later, doing what it's doing. But how do you calculate the growth and with your business, not to overgrow, not to undergrow? That's not a word or a but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
how do you balance that?
Well, I think in general, I'm sure it's like this in most industries, but in ours in particular, you can definitely say that you're either scaling or you're dying. And that can be internal scaling. It doesn't necessarily have to be external, but it's an anomaly. They exist. It's an anomaly, though, to have a business that's been around in this industry for 50 years that hasn't changed a thing. And when you find them, they're absolute gems. And there are a handful of them in this city, and they don't get enough attention. The attention seems to come to, I don't know, I'm old now, but I'd say, younger guys like me. And I think they don't get enough attention. But I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that. What was the question?
When you're trying to think about scaling, and
right,
you need to do it in your mind.
Yeah. So scaling's really hard. And I don't think that people give businesses enough credit for what they're going through to make this kind of thing happen. It's very difficult for a lot of different reasons. Something worked in one spot. Yeah. Doesn't mean that same thing is going to work in another spot. Right. On paper, it can make a lot of sense, but at the end of the day, there's no telling. You're really not going to know. So you do your best. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to put a whole lot of stress on your business, on your system, and on your team. One of the problems that we had was we had an incredible team in 2018 when we were getting ready to open Butcher and Block in the Grove. And so we felt like we had the resources to split that team apart and have some here and some there. But even that had its challenges. And as we coalesced post-pandemic, it became even harder because those folks no longer had the chemistry to work together as we coalesced back into one. So that was very difficult for us. But in general, keeping the SOPs, the standards, the details, and all those things in check when you've got new people that you have to bring on in order to move this thing forward is very difficult to maintain. And so there's a lot of things that fall through the cracks that you have to catch. It's not double the problems when you open a second restaurant. It's probably 5 times the problems when you open a second restaurant, and you have to figure out how to manage that. And then, hopefully by the time you open the third one and the fourth one, you have the system down to the point where you can handle different locations, and it'll become a little bit easier. But man, holding people accountable from a distance is difficult.
Yeah.
So, there's other brands that have done this successfully. There's other brands that have done this unsuccessfully, and there's some that have scaled that are still learning. And we had to retract because of the pandemic.
Yeah. It's interesting. You've mentioned the pandemic a couple of times, and in so many people's minds, it's, a far thing in the past. But in the hospitality world, so many are still feeling the ripples.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll feel the ripples probably for another decade in our business. And it's just so impactful that it's hard to not include it in conversation.
I actually remember interviewing you at the very beginning, standing outside your Belleville spot talking about hey, this thing is happening. I think it was right as they were shutting things down in Illinois.
Yeah.
And that feels like a lifetime ago, but in some ways it also feels like yesterday.
Yeah. I still, those scars will never go away. But for us, scaling has become efficient because we found new ways to do it, ways that would be successful, even though we're dealing with the residual effects of what we went through. And so with the experience that we've had, it might be $1 million lessons that we've learned, right? But we've learned those lessons. And so we've gotten pretty good at scaling, and opening new locations without losing who we are. And so, are
there more coming?
I want to keep it tight, but I want to scale, and I want to make sure that we scale responsibly, and I want to make sure that we do it at a high level. And that is going to take a lot of oversight and a lot of money, and in a lot of expansion of our SOPs and things like that. I think being responsible is probably the best phrase that I could use in that. I didn't have intentions of expanding when I opened Beast.
We're going to have the one spot there in Belleville. And
because.
And why Belleville? Are you from there?
Well, I've lived there twice.
Okay.
Yeah. I've lived all around this area. I've lived in the city too, in St. Louis. And we had an opportunity in Belleville, so we took it. And the city has been great to us ever since, so it's been really good. But yeah, I didn't want to expand until we did. And then, we wanted to then, obviously, but there was no intentions of that early on. We just wanted to, for me, I was such a chef, man. And I
you say that was such...
Because, I got to tell you, my experiences are just probably different from a lot of chefs because I've been on this side of things now. And there's a difference between being a chef and being a businessman. I've had to learn how to be both. And that's really hard to do when you're very passionate about what you do. So as a chef, it's my art. When I come in, this rack of ribs is not just a rack of ribs. This is my art. This is my painting. This is my, you're consuming it, but like I worked really hard on this. And, I took abstract philosophies and I turned it into something tangible. And it's my artwork. And, that opens up people to have opinions about it, but it is what it is, but, learning how to run a business is a different thing. Mm-hmm. And so if your passions drive you to bankruptcy, then I think you need to take a look at your passions and maybe reevaluate them a bit, So there's balance. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important for scaling. I don't think that you can scale on passion alone. I think you have to do it with your staff in mind, mm-hmm. treating them right, not overdoing it with them, expecting too much from them, not just being responsible for them too, because there's just not. I don't know that I have it in me to be really greedy about the stuff. Of course, mm-hmm. I'd love more money like anybody else, but like I'm not going to ruin people's lives to do it. Yeah. So it's just about being responsible, and it's about doing things at a high level within the goalpost that the business provides to you. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, the business will tell you.
It's like the tea leaves.
Man, they talk. I'm telling you, the business speaks to you and it tells you exactly what it needs and it takes care of itself. It's a living organism. And, let me tell you what it's been telling me for the last 12 years.
What's that?
Get your fat ass out of the way. That is over and over again. So I'm trying my best to replace myself as often as possible.
You've done a lot of really cool stuff in the last decade plus, TV appearances, Beat Bobby Flay, Food Network, all these places that people see you and they're like, this guy has done some really cool stuff. But how do you define, some of the best moments in this business that you've had so far? And maybe it is hanging out with Bobby Flay.
I can't contractually tell you what happens in that episode of Beat Bobby Flay. What I can tell you is that those moments are up there with the birth of my children.
Okay.
And you can take that how you do.
I like it.
But, man, I think the moments that make it worth it are watching staff members grow into who they're becoming, and giving them the avenues to do that, whether it's staying with us for a long time or not, but building legacy with people. And, if they don't stay with us, sending them on their way, ready for the next challenge and ready for the next phase of their life. And, seeing your investments in that way, come to fruition, I think are really cool moments for me. I love watching people grow. Expanding my own progeny, I think is part of that too. I have 4 kids now somehow. And
how do you balance it?
I don't. I don't think it's balance. I think that, listen, I'm kind of a crazy person and I'm just always going. It just doesn't stop. So I'm working really hard to be a better dad and a better husband at this point, 12 years in, because the business has taken so much from me. And I think a lot of people don't understand the vortex that's created when you open a restaurant of all things. What a terrible business model. Okay, for one, listen, I'm not talking out of my ass here. Okay, listen to this advice. Okay, if you're thinking about opening a restaurant, probably not. Okay, like maybe think about doing something else. It is literally one of the worst investments that you can make. Okay, for as much financial capital and as much time capital as it requires for you to make a few percentage points. And I'm not talking about, I mean, a few. I'm talking about like a handful or less out of everything that flows through there. It is one of the worst investments you can make in your life, including what it does to everyone else around you. It will suck in your family and your friends, and everyone around you pays for your passion. And that's sobering. And I didn't realize what that was going to look like until it happened. And so it's helped me to kind of determine my place and where I need to be better at taking care of people and supporting the people around me. And so, I've matured a lot. It's been over a decade, and, I just try to pay it back, and being a better dad right now and a husband, I think, is the main focus, because holy moly, this has been a roller coaster. And, I'm a workaholic, and I think that you have to be. Like, I don't think people realize what it takes. If you want to be a successful restaurateur, and I'm talking about just getting by, like just breaking even. This is hell on wheels, man. Like you're going to have to do nothing else. And I think people aren't prepared for that.
Yeah.
If you want to be really successful, you really have to convince other people to do that with you. And it's hard. It's really hard. So do something else, I think, is the point of the podcast today. But
we're going to leave you with a higher note, which is what you need to eat if you have, for some reason, not made your way to Beast Craft BBQ. So what's the must order?
At Beast?
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite item in barbecue is snoot.
Okay.
Right.
Now, there's probably a lot of people listening who have never had it.
Yeah. So listen, I'm not going to sell this well. Okay. So
just like you're selling
bear with
being
me.
in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
We like honesty here, so it's good.
Man, I'll tell you won't get nothing else from me. Snoot is carved from the skull. Okay. It's the mask of the animal. Don't call it snout. Okay. The dish is called snoot. All right. I'm going to be highly offended if you come in asking for snout. But listen, you basically carve the skin and fat off of the skull. There's some jowl that's attached, and the nose portion, which is pretty much inedible any way that you try to utilize it. We will set that aside and smoke it for dog treats. The dogs really like I've told you, I'm not going to sell this well, right? So what we do is we take that skin and fat, and we'll carve the jowl out, because it burns and becomes bitter before the rest of it is done. But you take that skin and fat and you roast it over coals for hours. So this is kind of like a direct smoke, as opposed to an indirect smoke, which you would see in an offset smoker, like for a Texas brisket, right? Mm-hmm. Brisket loves an offset pit. They all love different things, but these smaller cuts, ribs, pork steaks, chickens, things like that, they really do well in a direct smoke, which is like grilling, but the grate's a little bit higher. Okay. Right? So you have all of this smoke going right up into it, but you also have these drippings that come down, and they splash in the coals, and they create these new vapors and carbons that come up into the meat, and they flavor it kind of like a steak along with the smoke that you're getting, whether you are just using charcoal or adding a little bit of wood or whatever to it. And so the snoot gets grilled or smoked, over that for 3-4 hours until it's like hard and crispy. And I'm talking about hard, like bang it on a table hard, right? Again, I'm not selling this well, I know, but when we get the order, what we do is we drop it in simmering barbecue sauce for 5 to 7 minutes or so, and it softens it up just enough to be palatable. And it's basically a sauced chicharron. Okay. And it's absolutely fantastic. It was born out of slavery in Alabama and Mississippi, but it was made famous here in St. Louis. And so I have a lot of respect for this item, and I have a lot of love for this item. And I just think it's beautiful. And if you haven't tried it, you should. It's an acquired taste. It's not for everyone. Okay. We have a lot of people that order it with extra hair. That's a thing.
Excuse me? Come again?
Yeah.
Come again?
Yeah, I told you. That's not necessarily for me, but I'm telling you, it's an item that you should try at least once in your life. Don't be scared of it.
I just want to say thank you again for everyone who has made it possible for us to have 50 episodes of the What's New in the Lou podcast. We are so grateful. And as always, we are going to end the episode with a calendar of things to do in the Lou this week, July 6th through July 12th. South Pacific opens at the Muni and is happening July 6th through the 12th. The St. Lunatics 25th anniversary show is taking place at the Pageant on July 10th. Let Them Eat Art is a festival in Maplewood that's happening Friday, July 10th. Urban Chestnut's inaugural Beer Mile North American Classic takes place Saturday, July 11th in the Grove, and the Green Living Festival happens at the Missouri Botanical Garden on Saturday, July 11th. Thanks, as always, for everyone who takes the time to listen, to share, to join us on this podcast. If you have a suggestion for an upcoming episode or have an event that you want included in the calendar, you can always reach out to us on social media. Find us on Instagram and on Facebook at What's New in the Lou podcast. Thanks so much for listening.